And someone messaged me yesterday and she was like, I posted a picture of the 3 hats that I made and she was like, I love that when you get an idea, you just go for it. And I was like, you know what? I responded to her that it's a blessing and a curse because I feel like we drop everything to like bring a vision to life. Welcome to Life Unleashed,
the podcast all about creating the best life for you and your furry best friend.
If you're a dog mom on the go, juggling life, work, and the endless joys of being a dog parent, then you're in the right place. I'm Dani.
And I'm Nick.
And together with the incredible dog mom community from Tails Up Pup, we're here to share advice, stories, and the obsession we have over the love for our dogs.
Get ready to laugh, learn, and lean on each other because life with your dog just got even more awesome.
We have a lot of life updates, I feel like, because we have a child who is crawling.
Literally, it went from he was taking like 2 to 3 steps like in his crawling position and he'd like topple over, and then literally one day he was crawling like tons of steps.
And now he cannot be stopped.
That's all he wants to do.
I will say, with everything I post on social media, I always get messages of like, our kids are similar in age or mine's older and they're not doing this. Like, comparison is the thief of joy.
Yes, that is that's a truism for a reason.
Everyone in all stages of life develop at different paces, so you don't need to compare your kid to my kid. This is just what is happening for him, and we're just excited and we like to talk about it. And we don't talk about it to try to make anyone feel bad or to compare. We just are talking about our life.
Yes. Crawling is going to open up a whole new world of like, now he can get anywhere. Before, he could get around really well in his walker. But the thing is with the walker, it's big, like its profile is big. So like he can't fit in all different areas and he can't like get right up and like touch stuff. He can open some cabinets, but not super well because like he can't get that close to him. Now with the crawling, he can go everywhere.
Yeah, so we really have to officially baby-proof at least the upstairs parts of like when like if we're used to putting him down so we can like cook or go to the bathroom, and it's like now there is no freedom.
Yeah, but I'm glad that he's crawling. He's still, though, it's funny, when he crawls, he grunts the whole time.
Yeah,
so hopefully that stops.
I think it will stop. I think it's like when you learn to do something new and it's still really hard and like your brain's trying to work really hard to figure it out. I think like if you look at his eyes, he's still concentrating so much.
Yeah, it definitely is taking a lot of energy and things like that.
Holly likes to start the podcast with a game of fetch. She thinks that this is a prime time for us when we're sitting down and have our undivided attention that we could play fetch.
It is like she knows when we sit down to film the podcast that it's time to distract or to come in and like be like, let's play fetch. Because when we sit in here without that, she doesn't do this.
I will say, this is one thing that I feel like has been a difference, kind of. Like Holly has always been very high energy, needed lots of attention and stuff, but I feel like she's taking it more personally now because we have to give our attention to Callan and it's not all for her anymore. And so she definitely like wants to play more and is constantly bringing us toys. I think she like wants more undivided attention.
Or is it that we just notice it more because we can't do it?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
Okay, our other life update is that you are almost done writing your first draft of your book.
Oh my gosh, I'm literally on the last chapter, and like it has been such a work in progress. Like I don't think I've missed a day of writing like since Christmas. I don't think I've missed a day since Christmas. Have I?
No, probably not.
Yeah, so that's a lot of days in a row, which I'm very proud of myself. And yeah, I'm on the last chapter, and it is going to be done hopefully this week.
But today you are starting to get congested, so
yeah,
it will be okay if you take a night off and just relax. But I can already see it in your eyes. You're like, I'm definitely not.
Well, it's one of those things like when you know what you want to write, it's like I got to get down. I have to sit down and get it out.
But sometimes life knocks you down and you have to pause for a second.
Yeah, I mean, if I end up not feeling good and can't do it, then I won't.
Okay, you need to take it easy.
So I have a very interesting stat that I saw the other day. I think I did tell you this. So we have hit officially 60,000 lifetime orders for Tails Up Pup.
When Nick first told me that, he messaged me and he was downstairs and I was upstairs and he's like, we need to talk about this. And I'm like, how is it only that? And then he was trying to talk me back into reality. It just feels like it should be so many more because 60,000 when like that's less than followers we have on Instagram. We have like twice as many on TikTok. It's like, how can you have that many people's eyeballs and like only have sold to 60,000 of them? But Nick's point was, that's actually a lot. He was trying to break it down into how much you would have to work a day to fulfill all those orders. And it's 60,000 orders, which means there's
Holly just scared herself on one of Callan's toys.
those orders have more than one thing in them. Like we rarely sell one item.
Yeah, those are I think items wise we're closing in I want to say close to 200,000 items.
That sounds about right.
So that's 200,000, more or less almost all handmade items. Yes, we sell other things like toys and treats that are not handmade, but like percentage wise, it is like 98% handmade items. So thinking about making 200,000 plus different things, like that's crazy.
I would say probably the number one question we've got over the past 6.5 years is how have we sold so many items, or how do you get so many sales? And this is coming from people, most of the time, people who want to do something like what we do. Maybe they're trying and the sales aren't coming. And I would say every phase of life has been different for us. And there have been times where we got a ton of orders in a day, and then there's some days where, like, I believe yesterday we had like 3 orders, and like that's really low compared to like what we used to do every day. So it just, every day is different, and you have to try to bend, pivot, and do things that, like we said in other times, like doing the In My Dog Mom era, and like coming up with new ideas that are like in with the times, and like trying to keep up and have new things can really be beneficial to keeping orders flowing.
It's so funny that you're literally saying this, because that it just shows me that our brains work so similarly. Because when I was bringing up the 60,000 orders, what I wanted to talk about was like how to know when to pivot in life, and like all the different pivots we've made along the way to get to that amount of orders. It's so funny that you said that.
I will say that there's a lot of moving parts to getting orders, and it all goes back to marketing, and how we have chosen to market ourselves has been like almost exclusively on social media. And I always tell people, I'm like, okay, first of all, you have to have a good product. You have to have good photos or content of your product. And for us, we've also built a brand around us and our personalities. So people are coming to Tails Up Pup because they want a dog bandana. They find value in handmade products, and they relate to Nick or I or anyone who has worked at Tails Up Pup and maybe has the same style or same personality or likes this person's dog, whatever it may be. It could be something so small, or it could be something really big. They're finding some connection to our brand. So I think that there's 2 main categories. There's people who like Tails Up Pup, who we are and what we strive to be. And there's people who come for a cute dog bandana. Those are the 2 main categories of why someone comes to choose to buy from us.
Well, you've always said that like people like to buy from people, and I 100% like agree with that. I mean, when I think about myself, yes, there are definitely times for items that like I just need the item and I go and I buy it, and I'm not really wondering who owns it, who owns the store, or any of that type of stuff. But more often than not, I really do enjoy like feeling that I have some level of connection to like the businesses that I'm supporting. And so we've definitely decided to build our brand around that same like philosophy.
Especially as majority women, but if men are here, welcome and hello. But, you know, as women in our 20s and 30s, it is so hard to make friends and connections these days. And online has allowed us to do that in a totally different way, especially during the pandemic and having everything closed down or not feeling comfortable going to see people in person. Having an online presence and having a connection with people over the internet, like really like allowed us to grow and become what we are today.
Yeah, it is so crazy. Like everyone talks about like, oh, the internet's so powerful and things like that. But like, you know, we've literally like experienced that like in our, you know, business and our lives, like how many friendships have been made through the internet and things like that. And yes, there are lots of negatives about social media, but I feel like for us, we've tried to, you know, make Tails Up a place of like really positivity, friendships, community. And like, we've just seen that blossom over the years. When I was thinking about like the 60,000, like first and foremost, like I'm just so like blown away and thankful like for like all the people that have supported us over time. Like it's not 60,000 people, because like there's plenty of people that have placed more than one order, but regardless, it's still a lot of people that have supported our dreams and all of that type of stuff. And I just like was like kind of having that moment of like just very thankful, and it's hard to believe.
It is hard to believe, because if there were 60,000 people lined up at our door ready to buy something, or even just like when I think about it in perspective, like one reel, I'm like, okay, the reel I posted last week, just the one single reel had 20,000 views. I'm like, there were 20,000 eyeballs on me. Like, that is crazy to put into perspective.
Yeah, Danielle always tells me, like, if I post something like on my personal page and it gets like a few hundred views, she's like, Nick, think about like a few hundred people in like an auditorium. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And that's something to also keep into perspective.
And it's crazy that for us, we have been very consistent at posting our morning stories almost every single day for 6.5 years. And we've had so many people tell us, like, I wake up, I drink my coffee, and I watch your stories. Like, it's my morning routine. It's like where I find happiness, or I love seeing what you guys are up to. And it's crazy that as a single person, because most of the time it's just me on the stories, but Nick too, like, we are making an impact on people's lives. And it's like, I think that's why sometimes I get so hung up on like, what's the question of the day going to be? Or like, what am I going to post this morning? Because I'm like, people are counting on this. And like, you know, if I don't feel like doing it, I always go back to my core and I'm like, you know what? My smile, what I say, like trying to uplift people is going to matter, whether it's to one person or not. And we've talked about this more recently. Like, we used to get near 10,000 views on a story, and now I can barely get 1,000. It's like the views are down and I can get discouraged, but overall it doesn't matter because the people are here, want to be here. And I just need a close knit a group of friends, and that's all that really matters. I don't need 10,000 friends. I need 5 good friends.
Well, like what you said, comparison is a thief of joy. And if you're comparing yourself and ourselves to like the past amount of views,
I feel like it is different when you're comparing yourself to yourself.
Sometimes it is. Well, I don't know. Like for me, like if I compare something that like that circumstance of like a lot more views to like now less, you feel like, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
Like, I think it can still get in your head.
And especially since we've had a major life event of having a kid, it's like, do people not want to see that? Do people want to see that? But whenever I ask, like, what do y'all want to see? It's always just like what we're up to and what is happening in life. And that's just part of our life now. So that's kind of why we've bent and gone in that direction. And it's hard to know if that's the right direction or not. But I feel like it's authentic to who we are because that's what we're living right now. And if we were to like be walking around acting like we didn't have a kid, that'd be so unauthentic to who we are that it would, I think, go downhill in a totally different direction.
So I wanted to move and talk a little bit about like all the different pivots we've made, and like the specific point I think that I want to make throughout this time is like the pivots to you guys probably feel like, as like the viewer, for instance, felt relatively seamless, and like we try to make them feel that way. But like to us, at a lot of these different pivots, we were freaking out internally, or like we're really like struggling of like, what should we do? And I think like the lesson there is like, you know, yes, pivots can be very stressful and it's really hard to know when to do it. But ultimately, like, we'll talk about some of the good pivots we made and then some of like the pivots we made that didn't work out at all. And like how life ultimately is not like a upward linear trajectory. It's like we bing bang bopped all around, sometimes up, sometimes down.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I'm thinking in particular, this is like mostly going back to like orders and stuff, but like our biggest order was from Francesca's, and it was one single order that was hundreds of bandanas, and everyone always thinks that that's the coolest moment of our journey, and like, wow, it's so cool you were in that store and it's like so well known and all that stuff. But as a small business, it, to me, like, it still is really cool. But when I think about like to my core, like, do I actually care that much, or is it the fact that other people care that much? I feel like it's so hard for a small business because we are not actually equipped to do that. If we had, you know, I don't remember how many bandanas it was.
Over 1,000.
Okay. So if we had people placing orders for 1,000 bandanas at one time consistently, we would obviously have to have a team or outsource or whatever to fulfill those, because Nick and I just couldn't keep up with the demand. It would be like months of turnaround time, which is not ideal. But when one time it happens, or it happened twice, but like, we are just not equipped for that. And you can't afford to go out and hire people to do that because it's only going to happen once or twice. So actually it's very hard as a small business.
Yes, it is. And like, no one has sympathy for you because it's like, that's a great thing that happened to you. But at the same time, it can like, it really messes up all your processes. Like you said, we're not built to do that.
And I always, even today with the wholesale orders that we get, basically the way wholesale works is a store can come buy from you and they're typically getting it 50% off so that they can sell it for a certain amount of margin. And so for us, I'm always going to care for my individual customers more because they're the ones who are here because they want to be here and they're coming back and they're like caring about our products and our brand. These stores don't really care. They're actually more selfish for themselves. And so it is very hard to balance because we want to satisfy everyone, but if the timeline is only this and there's only 2 of us, we have to pick and choose. So like right now, if we have a wholesale order come in, we're like, okay, it's going to take 2 weeks for you to get it. Where if a customer orders, we're like, it'll take 2 days. So that's kind of like the balance that we've made in that realm.
Yes. So let's go back to the beginning. We start out with dog bandanas, and I would say like we did that, a year and a half? That like first few months, we were really trying to do a lot of stuff. You were making like greeting cards and like ornaments, and like we were like really doing a bunch of different things. But it really settled in that first year and a half, like dog bandanas. And I feel like our first major pivot came with like embroidered items from a product standpoint.
See, I don't know. I feel like, okay, here's how my memory goes so far. We make the one bandana, we post the photo, someone asked to have one, and we're like, oh, there actually is a gap in the market. We should make these bandanas. We start our Etsy shop, and we're just doing bandanas. That was September of 2018. And then Black Friday happens, and that's like our first boom because we just had people start coming because there was a sale. We did a huge sale. So at the end of 2018, that's when Nick starts coming in. And I'm pretty sure 3 months later, in March of 2019, is when we went to our first expo in Orlando. Wasn't that? Yeah, because it wasn't 2020. It was before 2020.
Yes,
so
we were still in our house.
Only a few months in, and that's when we were like, we want to expand. We want to sell dog collars. We want to sell toys. We ended up getting dog cakes, and we got our own T-shirts. And yeah, but before we went to that is when we got the Cricut, and I was like, okay, if we're going to invest in this machine, and I'm like, invest, okay, it was like, what, $150 or something, but at that time, it was a lot of money for us, and so I was like, what can we do with this machine other than personalized bandanas, because we were selling some, but not that many at that point, and so that's why I was like, yeah, we can make greeting cards, we can make Christmas ornaments, we can do vinyl T-shirts and all that stuff, so I feel like those were our first, like, official, like, oh, let's go from dog bandanas to a dog store. And let's also have things for the dog moms. And we really were like, from the very beginning, it was like, I think January or February, a few months in, where I was like, I want to match with my dog. And like looking back, we've always been a dog mom shop because we made hair ribbons, we made hair bows where Gracie and I could match.
Yeah. So I think like it's, talking about like the lessons from that, like some of that stuff, like the greeting cards and the ornaments and things like that in the beginning, I kind of feel like in some ways we were wasting our time with that. I feel like it might have been better.
Oh yeah, we didn't sell that many of those anyways.
Right, it really distracted us.
It did.
But the matching stuff, so like that stuff we learned relatively quickly, like at that time was not the right pivot to make, but the dog and me, like the dog mom shop, that really was the first, and that obviously we still are that in a different way, but that pivot was extremely important to the foundation of what Tails Up Pup became.
Let's play a quiz. Do you know the first like pretty big product for us that was a mom, a dog, and me matching combo thing?
In full bloom hair ribbon?
Okay, yes. That I was going to say that other than the hair ribbons, there was something else we did to match.
The scrunchies?
That counts as hair ribbons to me. We did matching human T-shirts and dog bandanas with your state on it. And we sold a lot of those for the time.
Yeah, like Georgia. And
and it had like an outline of the state, and then it said the state in cursive through it. And like the T-shirt and the bandana were gray. And yeah, it's so weird. It's like, why did I think to make that?
Let's bring it back.
We could. Callan has made an appearance. So if you hear any gulping, please disregard.
Callan, this is 6 minutes before you're supposed to get up from your nap, at least.
I think he went down 6 minutes early. He is like clockwork. He really knows time.
Yeah, who needs a clock when you have Callan?
Yeah.
So what were we saying?
Well, we ended up going to the expo and getting more products and expanding our business in that way. But then, like, I feel like you think the biggest pivot probably to date was doing embroidery because that of course, machine was very expensive and has impacted our business so much that it's now like at least half of our revenue.
Yeah, I think in the very beginning of like the business, the other lesson that I'm thinking of is like it is really hard to know, like part of you wants to try a lot of different things, throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. And I think some of that is important to do. Like I said, with the matching stuff, we may not have figured that out if we wouldn't have tried a bunch of different stuff. However, I do think, at least for us, if I could tell my younger self, it would have been like, you know, try to pick something that seems to be working okay and give it a fair amount of time to see if it's going to work. Because it does take a lot more time and effort to, you know, put into something to actually see if it's going to work before you, you know, pull the plug on it.
I've definitely thrown a lot of spaghetti at the wall.
And I think, like I'm saying, that's important in a general thing. But I think, at least for us, we had the tendency to want to throw maybe too much in the beginning and rather than focusing on some of the stuff.
You know, something else that we kind of forget about that really helped us pivot in the time of craziness?
What's that?
Masks.
Yeah, masks. That was like a out of the blue pivot, but I feel like, you know, people needed masks at the time and like we could sew. So I was like, let's do it.
I don't think that we would have pivoted so quickly and been so in the right time and right market if it wasn't for my mom, because she was working in the hospitals and she was the one who was like, we don't have any masks. We're like, we are out. We need you to make them and send them. And like her whole staff bought them from us and we posted them online. We were selling on Facebook and
that was
Etsy
before like every Facebook feed was filled with like all the like at home crafters being like, I'm making masks. We were very early.
And quickly it was hard to get the elastic to go around your ears and stuff. And we ended up using like string to tie them around heads and stuff. I mean, we have a lot of elastic still because when we could get it, we would just get it. And even fabric was really hard to come by, but we had so much fabric that it allowed us to do really well. And we had like all our cute dog bandana patterns. So we were able to make cute ones.
So yes, then the next big pivot I think was embroidery. And that was, like you said, more of a hard pivot because that machine was so expensive. So it was like, really, if we're going to get into this, I feel like it has to be right.
I was just going to say something crazy, but I'm not trying to shade anyone.
Okay.
I'm just stating facts.
Okay.
We bought that machine and it did not work well. And so we used it to the best of our abilities, but that ended up being one of our biggest headaches and we didn't know what to do because we spent thousands of dollars on it and it was not working right. And eventually, like how long after? Like a year?
Well, we took that machine literally like 10 times to like
multiple different
like embroidery places to be like, hey, like literally every like 10 or so items, like it just decides to do something totally random and embroiders on a totally weird spot. Like, why is it doing this? And no one could figure it out and what's going on.
And they kind of thought, like, one person was like, you're making this up kind of thing. And we were like, no, like, here's video footage of it doing it. And we eventually went to sewingmachine.com and Mel at sewingmachine.com is the absolute best. And he basically let us trade it. And I mean, maybe he was able to like figure it out and like sell it used and like, who knows? But he basically let us like trade it in for the value of it. And we ended up buying a new one.
We got
brand new machine.
We got the set. For the amount that we paid for it, that's what we got off a new machine.
Yes. And that really was changing for us because we were able to like crank through items and have no problems. And I mean, we wasted a lot of money on like ruined items because the machine would just
and the time going down to all these different
much.
Places. It was like, oh my gosh, it was like so annoying. We'd go, we get it, and it would come back and be fine for like a day or two, and then it would do it again. And it was like, this makes no sense.
And we ran that machine all day, every day until we didn't. Okay, you have options. You either say, okay, my turnaround time is going to be longer or I need another machine. And we were doing like a 2-week turnaround time. And we're like, okay, well, other embroidery places, it was very common and still is that like 4-week turnaround time is like the average. And for us, we were like, well, we could compete in the market if we give people their items faster. So we felt like it was the right thing to invest in a second machine. And so that's what we did.
Well, we actually got, we got two machines at that time.
Remember,
was it
at the same exact time?
Yes. So I think we actually went and did we go buy I think it was. I think because I remember I went down there to buy a machine.
I thought that was the trade-in time.
Yeah, I think when we traded it in,
I
No.
don't remember.
No, you're right. So no, we did buy a new machine. We had the bad machine and we had the new machine. So we went and bought one, and then the old machine was still giving us problems. I went down there or whatever, and basically we did a double trade in. I traded that machine basically for another 6 needle, remember?
Yeah.
And then we got another 10 needle. That was kind of the deal we got.
So we currently still have a 6 needle and 2 10 needles. We have 3 machines, and they have done us wonderful jobs. It is crazy. Like sometimes they just have a mind of their own, and sometimes they'll do something crazy, or like, you know, the thread will break so much one day. I'll turn them off, let them sleep overnight, and then in the morning they are perfectly fine. And I always thought that was so strange. And now I'm like very much on the embroidery side of TikTok, and apparently that's just like a common thing that happens to everyone, and it's like so weird how they can be finicky. But for the most part, we had a lot more problems when we ran them all day every day, and I just think that like these machines aren't really meant to do that. Like if you wanted to, you'd have to have like a 5 head and like do all of that, and like these are more like industrial home machines.
Yeah.
And so they do much better now that we run them, you know, probably half the time that we used to, and we are able to give people their embroidered items very quickly. Like our website still says like 10 to 14 business days, but we are doing it much quicker than that. And you know, that's probably the number one feedback and thing and reviews that we get is like, I got this customized item and it came so quickly, and like that makes us really happy. And like we love to give people what they want quickly, because I know that's what we like.
Well, so that pivot ended up being embroidery is now half of our business at least. And so that was like obviously a very great and smart pivot. However, at the time it was crazy to buy all of those embroidery machines, and then we had no idea how to embroider. So like figuring out how to do all of that was like very stressful. But you know, that ended up turning out to be a very good thing. The next pivot I want to talk about is remember when we got into selling coffee?
Wow, I would not have even thought about talking about that in here, but yes.
That was a pivot, and that I think almost exactly a year we tried to make that partnership work out, and it ended up just not working.
So the spur of the whole idea is my friend Callie has her business, Callie Danielle, and she essentially works with I don't know like what they're called, like a branding agency maybe, and they are the facilitator of, you know, housing her products, shipping her products, and they do a ton for her. And it's like such a cool partnership because she's able to be a small business owner, work from her house, do all of the artist part, and, you know, create these products, but not have to have the warehouse or even have to do a lot of the business side of things. Like all of the things that suck in a business, someone else does for her, and she gets to do like a lot of the fun parts. And she was telling me how she thought Nick and I would be really good at doing something like that. And it really was interesting to us because we also were like, you know what? We have this essentially a warehouse. We have room. We have employees. And, you know, we can choose to grow our own business, or we could help other small businesses grow their business. And so we were like, let's dabble in this. Let's like see what this is about. And we had a friend tell us like, you know, hey, I'm interested in starting a business. And I was like, well, we've been interested in helping people. So it kind of was like all the stars aligned for us. And we were like, let's just do it. And overall, it just didn't work out for us. But it's not to say that we would never do something like that. I think we learned a lot, and we would just have to like restructure on how things would work. But overall, you know, I think it was a good learning experience.
No, it definitely was a good learning experience. It just turned out to be like a pivot that, you know, ended up, we went down that road for a year, and obviously we don't sell coffee anymore.
Yeah, and that coffee is so good.
Yeah, I missed that. And so I think there's definitely times, and like I feel like this happened to us every year. We would sit down kind of in our January time and be like, okay, what is going to be our mechanism for growth this year? And you know, one of the things is embroidery. That worked really well. One of the years was clothing.
Yeah, I was going to say, that was my next thing I was going to talk about.
Which we'll talk about that in a second. And then one of the times was like this coffee helping other businesses. That one, the businesses, the coffee, didn't work out. The boutique clothing, we did for what, 2 years probably?
Yeah, at least.
And that ended up not working out.
3 years, I think.
Which really didn't make sense how it didn't work out, but it didn't. We tried very hard to make it work.
Yeah, I think, Ensley and I getting pregnant were like the final closing doors, but it was very hard to make money. We wanted to have like affordable clothing, and other boutiques were selling these items for much more. And at first you're like, why are they selling it for so much money? But then you're like, oh my gosh, you have to charge so much more because like there's so much costs that go into that, and it's so hard to compete in because the market's very saturated. If you're new here and like look at our website, there's like no evidence really that we sold boutique clothing items, but that was such a big part of our business for so long. And like that was almost like Ensley's whole job for a while was like, inventory of that and taking pictures and like like we had to do so many photo shoots. We had new arrivals every single week for over a year.
Yeah, that was crazy.
And it was like a lot of clothing. We did a lot of bandanas at that time too, but it was like constantly clothing this, clothing that, and it was like so consuming. It was so much fun. I loved it, and it was something that I always wanted to do. We even like had a full-on professional photographer and like did a very official photo shoots, which was fun. And I mean, every phase has been so fun because I feel like when we get excited and passionate about something new, it's like we are very excited about it. I feel like even right now, my current thing for Simply Sweepy and the kids stuff is doing like these birthday banners and party hats. And someone messaged me yesterday and she was like, I posted a picture of the 3 hats that I made, and she was like, I love that when you get an idea, you just go for it. And I was like, you know what? I responded to her that it's a blessing and a curse because I feel like we drop everything to like bring a vision to life. But I think that is something that's cool about us is like, we don't just talk about something, we really do it. And if it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out. But like, I'm able to we've been talking recently on the podcast too. Like I kind of felt in a creative rut, and I feel like these like birthday banners and party hats are allowing me to be creative again, because like you can do different designs and different patterns, and like it's a combination of embroidery and sewing and assembling, and I just feel like it's something new and fun.
And same with like the yarn sweatshirts.
Yes, the yarn sweatshirts have been a huge thing. It was a trend I saw on TikTok, and I was like, you know what? Let's try this. And Nick and Callan and I loaded up in the car, went to the local Joann's, got all the stuff, made some, and people loved them. And it has been really fun to see like people who want to rep their favorite team or like, I don't know, their schools and stuff like that. And we get to create them like some fun items.
Yeah, I feel like with all of these different pivots, it's really just like willing to make a little bit of an investment, try it out, and see what happens. Obviously, with the embroidery, the coffee, those ended up being bigger investments. The clothing, bigger investments. And one thing that I feel like in business that we've learned, it tends to do better for us, at least financially, when we can dip our toe in the water for a pivot and just see. And if it does well, then go one more step, and then one more step, then one more step. It has seen, sometimes you cannot do that. It's very hard to get into embroidery without getting a machine. Now you could get a cheaper machine, but it seems to do better when we make smaller pivots and test it out before we jump full off the cliff.
I think it would be fun to do like a little analytics in here, but I need a computer. So analytics are a little tricky for us because we were not always on Shopify. We started on Squarespace, and we've been on Shopify for 2 or 3 years now?
3 years. We had like almost 22,000 orders on Squarespace. So
this is 3 years worth of information then, because I'm just going to pull Shopify information for the fun of this analytics. So Nick, not who, but like the person with the most amount of orders, how many orders do you think it is?
209.
Please hold. Okay, you're very close to guessing the second one. The second one is 203. So there's someone above that with more than 203 orders.
235.
288 orders in 3 years.
288 orders. Wow.
Okay, but typically in the past, at least, and this is real-time analytics. I do not know the answers. In the past, we've had people, okay, so like number of orders does not always equate to the most amount of money spent, because some people buy a lot in their orders. So they could have half as many orders, but have the most amount spent. So how many orders do you think the person with the most amount spent has?
Ooh, probably like 100.
So you think from going from 288 as the most orders, the person who spent the most in the past 3 years?
No, 142.
Close. 170.
170.
But the person with 288 orders, the most number of orders on this platform, is the second most amount spent.
Okay, that makes sense.
So there you go. They're $3,000 off.
Wow.
But they're over 100 orders different.
Yeah,
that's wild.
Yeah. Well, I do know there are some people out there that like that. This is how I am. Like I would order less times, but order more stuff each order. Spend more each order.
Okay, let me count how many is 10. Okay, in the top 10 customers, they might not currently be, but have ever been a subscriber. How many of the top 10 have been subscribers in their life?
All of them.
Yes! That's fun, isn't it? And the top 10 people who have the most amount of orders in our Shopify history, they sprawl. Sprawl? Is that the right word? Sprawl?
Well, what are you trying to say?
They all are from different states. They are all over the map.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. We got Minnesota, Florida, Washington, Texas, Vermont, Pennsylvania, Montana, Illinois, New York, and Tennessee.
We all over the U.S.
Yeah. Do you have any desires of our analytics?
Well, I've looked up a bunch of the different analytics at different times, so I feel like
what do you think someone might be wondering?
Ooh, that's a good question. What is the item that has been ordered the most? Like the most popular item? Like top 5?
All time?
Yeah.
Okay, what's your guess?
The subscription boxes are gotta be up there because
that's a good guess.
Yeah, subscription box is gonna be on the top 10 for sure. I'm not counting collar seam or name.
Okay, are we going by number of items sold or by amount of money?
Items. I think the top 2, like the number 1 is names, pet names for items.
Does that even count?
Well, I'm just saying, how many pet names have you done in there?
What's your guess?
Like 10,000.
I think that this variant, like if there's a different thing, like if they get to choose like a color, then it's going to come from like a whole different variant.
Okay.
So of the 2 most popular add pet name options, it is like almost 9,000.
Yeah, that's not right. Definitely not.
But there's like a bunch of other variants that
How
are
many
gonna use
collar
that.
seams?
Just under 6,000.
Okay.
Okay, so the top product in units sold, not monetary, because those do allow the number 1 to vary. Number 1 is the subscription box.
Yeah, it has to be, right? Because it's like every month it's boom, boom, no matter what.
Number 2 is pretty close.
Is it a happy birthday bandana?
That is number 3.
Is it will you marry me?
We don't sell that much.
Yeah, probably not.
It is. In my dog mom era, I thought you were going to guess that for number 1.
No, I just we had a really good run of that, but it's like it wasn't forever and not
How
the whole
many do you
time.
think we sold? And this does not include Etsy. We actually did sell a lot on Etsy. And I don't know if this counts wholesale.
Is it 2,000?
It's just under 2,000.
Just under 2,000.
All right, so it's subscription box. In my dog mom era, birthday sprinkle dog bandana, which does include both colors, the pink and the blue. And then another embroidered item, 718 units.
Is it the dog mom varsity?
No, because those are all different colors.
Is it Hello Pumpkin?
Yes! I did not think you were going to guess that.
Yeah, we've done a lot of Hello Pumpkin.
And then the sprinkle birthday bandana. So as you can see, we sell lots of birthday bandanas.
Well, that's because it's like it gets all year. Like we sell a lot of Christmas stuff, but it's only like a few months of the year. We sell a lot of fall stuff, but it's only a few months of the
Christmas
year.
is actually the next one.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And it is, let's say it on the count of 3. You don't have a guess? Well, you have to say something. In 3, 2, 1. North Pole plaid.
North Pole. Oh, of course. Why was I was blanking.
You were going to say traditional plaid. And the last one we'll say is the custom dog breed embroidered crew neck.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was fun checking out some of the stats.
Yeah, I love that stuff.
Yes. So I feel like all the different pivots, it's led us to where we are. And if you feel like you're stuck in a rut, I feel like throw some spaghetti at the wall, try a few different things. The minimum investment to make it like worth it has been the best for us. It's definitely not easy to pivot because most of the time, at least for the things that we've done, it's not something that like we really knew much about. It's like there's a big learning curve with embroidery. It was a huge learning curve. Like with a coffee, huge learning curve. Clothing, huge learning curve. But a lot of times, if you're willing to put in the work and like gain the knowledge, those pivots can end up being really good for you. But some of the times, it's fine if it doesn't work out. You at least tried. And we would not have gotten to where we are without trying some things. Do you have anything else to say on the pivots, life updates, this crazy conglomeration of topics that we've talked about today?
To be honest, I wasn't really listening to your last little spiel, so I feel like I can't add on to it because I was a little distracted. But I just feel like it's been such a crazy ride, and it's like, what is like the next 6 years like have in store, and like what are going to be like our top products, and like how many orders will we have, and like I feel like we love talking like analytics and all this stuff, and like there's just so much unknown for the future, and like it's crazy. Like the party hats I'm making could end up being like a huge bestseller for the future, and we just have no idea.
And Simply Sweet Pea Callan has definitely started to take off since you've been repping and being a model for us. Okay, well, Callan says it's time to go play. Is there any last things you wanted to say, Dani?
Thank you guys so much if you have been one of our 60,000 orders. And if you have just been a silent viewer this whole time, we still appreciate you. Every view, every like, every share, it all makes an impact. And actually, another fun analytic is like a lot of times those people who shared something, those other people end up becoming like fans or customers or part of like our community, and like all that stuff really does help. And I think that sometimes you're like, oh, like if I share this, like is anyone gonna care? And it's like it truly does make an impact to a small business owner like Nick and I. So thank you guys so much, and here's to the next next 60,000.
Oh my,
60,000 orders.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. We really do get to live the dream, and we couldn't do it without you.
Ready, Callan? Say bye.
Bye.